Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the next episode of With Conviction, a story of hope, horror, and history. My name is Rain, my pronouns are she, her, and I am your GM for this adventure. With me are my absolutely terrified heroes for this campaign. Why don't you all introduce yourselves?
Hi there, I'm Alice. I play Desdemona Hartwood. Both of us use she and they pronouns. Desdemona is a rose heart guardian, sort of gothy, punky, magical girl with a heart of pink, some new wings, and fortunately for everyone in the call, less proclivity towards puns than Alice has.
Yes, indeed.
Ah,
My name is Skylin. My pronouns are they and them. I play Chris Whitlock, whose pronouns are she or any. Chris is our sports captain, magical not a girl, who is a firebrand artillery and whose mind is currently worrying with how to handle this situation.
And I'm Rob. My pronouns are he, him, and I play Eliza, whose pronouns are she, her. Eliza is our stalwart soul warrior, fiery magical girl who is entirely unaware that things are bad right now.
Indeed, because the last time we had left you all, you had not only discovered a camp of soldiers who were trying to survive out here, you had discovered the woman you had known as the Angel of Shiloh, her name apparently being Matilda or Tilly. She had introduced you to the general, a man who's commanding this group and trying to keep them alive. You had suggested a rather audacious plan to him that required quite a bit of gunpowder, so he agreed to let you all take some soldiers out to collect it. And two of you had met with success. One of you, however, had met with the rider as he landed behind Chris and observed that you must be the intruder who's been killing his beasts.
Chris takes a moment to spread her wings wide to hide the soldiers behind her, and she waves a hand behind. She makes a finger gun motion, hoping that they will understand that that means please shoot up a flare. And then she addresses the rider. And what of it, my good sir?
Oh, please, don't get me wrong. I'm quite impressed. I think you do some beautiful work.
Then I bet you can't wait to see the masterpiece.
And he begins to laugh and laugh and laugh. This is not to say he continues laughing. Rather, instead, you hear the polyphony of his fractured, crumbling soul. Laughter over laughter over laughter, and it echoes. And you can hear the men behind you beginning to edge away, starting to try to put some space between them and you. Indeed, I am very excited to see what you will bring to my world. You can see him dismount and stride toward you, and you begin to get a better look at him. A long overcoat dripping with tar shrouds most of his form, and a bandage covers his left eye. He could have been handsome once with his strong build and well-kept facial hair, but now he is pale, and the hollow look in his remaining eye instills no comfort as it examines you. You can see a belt on his hip and a harness where a sheath should be, but there's no sword there.
I take it you are a fan of the theater.
I've never had the time.
Oh, but this is a theater of war, is it not?
Ah, quite witty. So why don't you show me your performance?
Well, I think I'd need my cast for that.
He doesn't give you a chance to respond. He immediately moves forward, and one hand comes up in an uppercut aimed at your solar plexus. Unfortunately, he rolls very poorly, and you are able to, at the last second, beat your wings and duck out of the way. The soldiers start running. What are you doing?
The game's now up. Run! Get out of here!
They're already running.
Chris takes a few steps back to follow. The plan here is for her to make a considered retreat. So it's a mixture of fleeing and fighting.
That makes sense. How do you want to go about doing that?
I don't quite know. I imagine that basically every turn I'm going to make a motion to either flee or fight. Not quite sure how it'll go exactly. Because Chris needs to be far enough away to throw something, which means she needs to put a zone between her and, like, the zone line between the two of them.
Would you like me to establish the zones for this fight?
Sure? Yeah, sure.
This is a running fight. So we are going to call them behind, ahead, and even. This is a little bit odd, but I think we can make this work. You are currently both in the even zone. The soldiers have managed to get far enough away that they will not be a factor in this fight unless you specifically ask them to.
Okay. Has Chris noticed whether they did catch the request for a signal flare?
You don't know if they have one on them.
Okay. First is a flee motion then, I think. Rolling sprint, I assume?
Makes sense.
That's an 11 on the dice, plus 1 is 12.
Yeah, you are able to move. You are able to move a little bit further away. You are, let's say, quite ahead instead of just normally ahead.
Okay.
And the rider, seeing you flee, skimming across the ground on your wings, is going to immediately mount back up and pursue. And you see this mount do something that they don't. Things like horses aren't usually capable of doing, and you wouldn't have imagined wyverns would be capable of if they existed either. Which is to say that its tail distends and reaches out toward you to try and wrap around you, and it's going to try to use draw to pull you in.
Well, shit.
And that is a complete success. 10. So he's going to use his movement to move up one zone, and then he's going to use his action to pull you back. So you are now both even again. It's your turn. What are you doing?
Okay. I don't fully know the mechanics of fleeing. Is fleeing your entire action, or is it more like extended movement and action, or what? What is it?
It would be your action. In a normal fight, this would remove you from the fight entirely. However, this is not a normal fight, it is going to be a little more complicated than that.
There's no running from a trainer battle.
Okay, so in this case, what Chris is going to do, instead of a full flee, she's going to step out into the open and use a fight action to throw a rock in the air and make it explode with her conviction.
All right, what are you trying to do with this?
This is a signal flare. This is a call for help.
Got it. Go ahead and roll your conviction.
I did say this is a fight roll. Are you agreeing with that?
I'm hesitant, as this is as you're not specifically attacking somebody, but what do you have in mind?
I just want to be able to use flare for a signal flare. if I need to.
Oh,
You know, that's a good pun. I'm going to allow it.
We weren't putting any. This is a flat roll, otherwise, right?
I think you usually use place for fight rolls.
I do. Okay. Okay. Well, it's a 9 on the dice. That's why I was asking. I was like, am I putting flair into this, or am I putting some ability into it? If you're okay with me using place,
I tried to favor y'all.
okay, then that would be an 11 total.
Okay. Des, Eliza,
Mm-hmm.
you are dealing with your own patrols. You have either managed to evade them entirely or distract them long enough for you to escape. When suddenly you hear a resounding thud and a shower of rock somewhere in the distance, and you can see the smoke and dust of this rock exploding if you turn to look. What are you doing?
Eliza looks at the soldiers that she's with, pops open the caisson lid, grabs one of the bags, and tells the soldiers, "Get back to the camp."
They do not hesitate. They are headed back toward the camp.
All right.
Yeah, almost an identical scene with Des. She hands over the powder that they have found and tells them the same thing. Get back to camp. I gotta go help. And takes to the skies.
All right. I want you to both make me a roll related to moving quickly or racing or sprinting or some such.
Gotta take a skill for that next time I get a chance.
Look, we can't all be the sportsy magical not a girl.
Well, it's a flat roll, but I get a 9.
All right.
Yeah.
Des?
5 on the dice. I got nothing to help it.
Ooh.
Question. Des, you have courage right now, do you not?
I
Ooh.
do.
Up to you if you use it. This roll is going to determine how many rounds it's going to take for you to get here.
Yeah, I figured.
Okay. Yeah, you know what? Let's use it. I will turn my 2 into a 4, which brings me up to a 7.
All right. 2 partial successes. We'll see when you all arrive. Chris, that's
Yep.
the end of your turn, correct?
Yep.
Well,
I would like you to know that I hate this. Chris is enjoying the adrenaline. Skylin is terrified.
I'm terribly sorry.
No, you're not.
I can't say I'm particularly regretting as the rider moves up toward you and you see the tar dripping off of the coat solidify around his hands into a pair of armored purple gauntlets, and he takes another punch at you. He is just up in your face. And that is going to be a 7. So I need you to take 2 points of stress. What are you doing?
Chris grits her teeth and grins at him and says, "Have you ever chased a hawk? Because I am the Beauty Dauntless, and I will be your death!" She turns around and runs. So she's gonna shift back 1 zone, and then as she's running, she picks up a softball-sized chunk of earth, and Chris has been training. Chris has been training not just for volleyball, not just for softball, but for this. Those feet have moved, those wings have moved in tandem. And so what we see is 1, 2, 3, 4 steps, a graceful pirouette with wings floating wide around as she spins, and that momentum carries the stone forward in its shot. That is a 9 on the dice, plus 2 is 11.
Ooh.
Excellent. You hammer him 1, 2, 3. These rocks strike home, and he is shielding himself with one upraised arm, but you can see that gauntlet start to crack, and you hear his laughter. Yes, show me! And he is going to dash toward you and bring you back into that melee and hammer you again with a series of pummeling strikes. And that is an 11 total. So you take 2 more stress.
I have to ask, was that fancy Purette strike enough for Chris to pick up a point of courage?
I think it was. I think that was very fun.
Very cool.
Mhm.
This time, when those purple gauntlets punch Chris, she grins again and says, "Try again, bucko." And as those punches fall, instead of pain and bruises showing up on her chest, it is radiating light across her body, and she will take that as burning bright into conviction instead.
Excellent. Excellent. What are you doing?
That was 2 turns. This time it's a full flee. I think we're going to try to get to 2 zones ahead.
All right.
Yeah, so she turns heel and lets her wings open up to carry her through. That is a 6 on the dice, plus 1 for sprint is 7.
All right. That is a mixed success. And as we saw previously with Dez, I think the way that we're going to interpret the complications there is that he's going to be able to get a shot at you. Unfortunately, he rolls very poorly, and you are able to get away scot-free. He is this time going to move 1 zone toward you, so there's still 1 zone separating you and him, and he is going to again use draw to pull you in. With a little bit more success this time. I kind of wish he'd rolled that a second ago. But that's a 9 total. So once again, his mount's tail lashes out far longer than it should be capable of and pulls you back in, and you are now equal. And at this point, you can see 2 winged figures skimming over the treetops in your direction.
So that draw action, is that a fight?
That is a fight roll, yes.
So I'd like to use recall here. It reads, sometimes the most important part of a fight is knowing when to escape. Cause the attacker to hesitate, and then you move to a different zone. This can happen when you are targeted by a fight action, and as long as you have at least 3 conviction.
Mm-hmm.
So as that way too long tail whips around and pulls Chris toward the rider, Chris grins again, pats the guy on the cheek, and then pushes off, sliding out of that hold and back to the away zone.
Excellent. Well, you're now only 1 zone away from him. And I believe that was the end of his turn. Des and Eliza, who's going next?
I have a thing I want Eliza to do.
Do it.
Uh-huh.
All this guy hears is catch, and something is flying towards him. Does he catch it?
I think he ducks out of the way.
All right. Well, either way, it's going to detonate pretty much immediately while it's in the air next to him because she threw the bag of gunpowder.
Okay.
Because why wouldn't you? And do we want to model that as the attack action, or just is that a set dressing
This
thing?
is absolutely a fight action.
All right. Let's. There's my dice. There's my dice. They're behind the tombstones. All right, that's a 9 on the dice. And I don't think I'm adding anything to this because finding patterns wouldn't apply for throwing a bag of gunpowder. But yeah, so that'll be. I've got 1 darkness, so that'll be 2 damage to him, 2 stress.
All right. So that explodes, and it's hard to tell if there's any soot on him, but he grimaces and wipes something away from his coat and looks up at you. Oh, I didn't realize you'd brought friends. How exciting. And he's going to, on his turn, dive after Chris.
I told you I had a cast.
And he's going to move into your zone and make that fight attack. And with a 13, you're going to take another 2 stress.
For those counting at home, Chris is currently at 4 stress and 4 conviction.
All right.
So who's next?
I guess table talk here. We're getting away. That's the plan.
That's kind of my thought. Yeah.
Seems like.
Then Des slams down just behind Chris and holds up her shield and is going to roll for protecting Chris. That is another pair of ones.
Oh, wow.
And he's going to use his last turn of the round to hammer down on Chris and Dez and just pummeling that shield absolutely mercilessly. And that is an 8. So, Dez, you take 2 points of stress.
I'm down.
What?
Yep, that's 6 stress. Des is down.
You see the shield break like a multicolored shower of glass. Chris, you see a punch go into Dez's stomach and then her throat, and then 2 more knock her into the ground. And this man is standing over you, grinning. And that's the top of the round.
Eliza actually just slams straight down into the ground in front of Chris and Dez, landing in a crouch with one hand on the ground, the other on her sword, which ignites. And she just looks this thing in the eye and says, "You leave them alone." And as she says that, the fire coming out of her wings and her sword shifts from blue to purple, as that's the darkness trigger. Put yourself in harm's way to protect others.
That is perfect.
And then that fire streaks again as she is rocketing straight towards this guy, sword point first.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a 7 on the dice, so she's going to inflict 3 stress on him.
All right, since you are moving from the sky to this zone.
Yeah.
Which, now that the fight seems to have slowed, we're going to call the tree line.
Okay.
So, an interesting thing happens here. You swing, this fire rakes into him. He brings up his arms to block, and it cuts, and the fire starts to burn, but he doesn't seem as affected as you would expect. He does take stress, but, and I will tell you this mechanically, you have now reached his stress barrier because you have inflicted a total of 5 stress on him. This means you cannot deal more stress to him until you have swayed him at least once.
All right.
And you begin to hear movement in the woods. You begin to hear movement in the skies. And that gray twilight that has been so tenuous begins to fade as the swarm starts to descend. You're fun. I think I'll save you for last. And he pivots around you under your sword arm and goes to knock out Chris. And it's another 13. Chris takes another 2 stress.
Yep. And so Chris grits her teeth, grins again, and passes out.
Talks well. Needs to fight better. And as for you, as he turns towards you, creatures lunge out of the woods behind him, and with Des at your feet and Chris behind the rider, you see these things start to tear into Chris. What are you doing?
Eliza just says, "You should have talked less and watched more." And as she says that, her left hand goes down to her hip, and she takes the grip of the cavalry saber in her hand, and with an upward slice, cuts a portal open right in front of her. She grabs onto Dez, who's behind her, and just bodily flings Dez through the portal, and then with a burst from her rockets, she streaks past this guy, picks up Chris entirely, because Chris is frankly fairly small, and on another rocket blast just goes straight through the portal, lands with the thrusters having reversed around to counter out her momentum, and quickly pulls the portal closed with the sword.
Excellent. I love this so much. Take courage.
Ah, yes.
Eliza, who's that person in your arms?
What?
Chris. You start to stir. There's someone holding you. You don't recognize them.
Well, shit. You're cute. Where'd you come from?
Des, you're able to pull yourself together. You see Eliza holding someone you don't know.
Eliza's just kind of, I think she's still kneeling there and just processing for a moment. And then she does the whole calculation of these are the things that could be. Oh no. And then she just says out loud, "Fuck."
What? That was a hell of a fight. Were you in that?
Yeah, so help us out here, GM. All three of us remember everything except for literally the identity of Chris.
You know you were in that fight. Was Chris in that fight? It's odd. You don't remember seeing this person in the platonically tan outfit, but they're here now. You can't remember how they got involved. You can't seem to remember having met them before. But they're certainly here.
Chris wriggles out of the grasp of the fiery one and sort of stands away, dusting herself off.
Yeah, you have been absolutely beaten to crap. Every piece of your body hurts. You don't remember how that happened. You don't remember the fight, but you are in quite a bit of pain.
Yeah, Chris goes from dusting himself off to sitting pretty quickly. In fact, I think Chris sits and then lays down and why does it hurt?
Hazel, Faith, you two there?
Do you try to call them?
Yeah.
They pick up. Oh my goodness, are you okay? We lost the call and we couldn't.
I'm okay, but we've got kind of a situation.
Is Des okay?
Mostly.
Okay. What's wrong?
Hazel, you remember what happened to you?
Please don't say what I think you're about to say.
What?
Uh, did Des get something eaten?
No, but someone else did?
Someone else? Oh, shit.
Yeah, listen, we're coming to my place, okay? I'll see you there in a bit. And I guess set the table for 5?
Well, that'll be new.
Maybe.
It's not too long for you to get there. You've made this drive a few times by now. Des and your unknown third are knocked out, so to speak, in the back seats of your car. Essentially horizontal. Both of them are in quite a bit of pain. And it takes some work when you get home to get everyone into your apartment. But as you said, Hazel has set places for 5, and there's some very easy to make food. Probably just some rice and a couple of leftovers.
It's a rice and a Costco chicken.
Exactly.
I think Eliza is like half carrying this mystery person in the door as they're getting in. Maybe Des is coming in separately, but
This new person is trying to shrug off the assistance. You're cute and all, but don't you have a friend to help?
yeah, but I can pick you up. I can't carry her.
I'll help Des. And Faith rushes forward and kind of
Thanks.
can't pick up Des, but definitely throws your arm around her shoulder and helps you move.
Des? Is that short for something?
Yeah, Desdemona.
Nice to meet you. Uh, I wish it was under better circumstances.
Yeah, me too. Um, I let's get inside and get some food.
So, who's sitting at the table and who's crashing on the couch?
I think Eliza would probably like try to get Des to lay down on the couch, and maybe the mystery person ends up on the big chair.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
Brings each of them a plate and asks this mystery person, what's your name?
I'm Chris Whitlock. Um, or in the other form, the Beauty of Dauntless. Um, I thought I was the only one around here.
I used to think that too, but then I met Des, and when did... this doesn't make any sense. Look, just try to eat something. I'm gonna have a weird thing for you in a little bit, but I'll try to make it make sense.
This is your friend who had something taken?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Chris, you said, do you recognize any of us?
GM?
No, I don't think you do. Hazel gives you a studying look, but doesn't say anything.
To answer your question, I don't think I know any of you. Um, I'm on the local volleyball team, though I live kind of close to campus.
At the mention of volleyball, Eliza looks at Hazel.
Yeah, Hazel turns quite pale at that. Do you have roommates?
Yeah. We all share a house together.
Shit.
What?
I think we might be roommates.
Might? Sorry.
We're all thinking it.
Yeah, we're
You
all
can say
thinking
it.
it.
You're allowed to say it.
Roommates or roommates?
Oh no. Oh no, they're flirty.
Share any pronouns for me, by the way.
Eliza just leans over to Hazel and is like, I can't tell. Is she your type?
Do you have icy hot?
Faith is already rummaging.
Yeah. Here, I can maybe do heat. Where's it sore?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Here, all right, I've been practicing this. Tell me if it's too hot. And Eliza sets her hands on Chris's shoulders, and they're just very warm.
Eliza can feel extremely tight muscles loosen fractionally. And Chris leans into that touch.
God, I wish I knew something about massaging.
I know a little. Not great at it yet. You should be able to feel where there's the most tension, and she kind of points out a couple of spots on the tops of her shoulder where she can feel that tension. Just set your thumb in it with the heat for a little bit. Don't push too much.
Eliza pushes too much.
Ah!
Oh,
No.
oh, sorry. Okay, that was too much.
Uh-huh. Just set
Okay.
it there.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah. Here we go.
Thanks. Desdemona probably needs that too.
Yeah, I think at this point they've laid Des down on the couch, and I think she's just passed out.
Faith is trying to help Des, but doesn't know enough. Like, patching a gaping chest wound, sure. That's kind of obvious that you need to put something over that hole. But when it comes to something that's not an obvious open wound, she's even more lost than she was previously. She kind of looks at Eliza just with that look that says help.
She's got the magic. She'll be okay in a while. Probably.
What happened? I've you
We fought the rider.
oh,
Yeah, which apparently is whoever the sword belongs to. And she shifts because she's still in her full getup, so the sword is hanging on her hip.
okay. Um
Chris, does the term Angel of Shiloh mean anything to you?
you could have sworn that you've heard that name before. Didn't you meet somebody in the gray who was referred to as an angel? The more you think about it, yeah, you did.
It rings a bell. I met somebody who was called an angel. Let me up for a second.
Okay.
Chris's wings fold up and she steps out away from the chair just for a moment. She clasps her hands in front of her heart and then shucks them down and transforms back into her normal gear. This outfit that she wore today was her volleyball apparel.
Oh,
It is in the college colors, and actually, GM, does it have the captain's C on it?
It does.
And it's paired with some long joggers and running shoes.
Okay, so you can do that. Does the term twin powers mean anything to you?
Chris collapses back in the chair.
Oh, bye.
I just thought the wings would be in the way. Yes, twin powers. The gray.
Eliza gets a little bit of a smile.
Is trying to deal with that spire.
Yeah, that's what we've been doing too. Okay. Right, I know what happened. Do you want the details right now?
How the hell have we been working on this at the same time and not met each other yet?
We have. Here's the thing.
Chris looks very dubious.
Twin powers is a term I made up. All right, well, good news, I know what happened, and I know how to fix it. Bad news, it's going to be really, really hard to fix.
If fixing it includes socking that rider guy with a nice fat volleyball, that sounds good to me.
Well, are you tired?
Very.
Yeah, okay. I've got a spare daybed if you want to sleep here tonight.
Maybe.
Yeah. And Des and I have this thing of going for pancakes afterward. Do you want to come for pancakes in the morning?
That produces a bright grin. Sure.
Des is passed out, but kind of like mumbles in her sleep.
Amazing. Yes. Excellent.
All right. Well, Chris, you said. I guess you can have the daybed because we're gonna need to work at figuring this out. I guess Des is sleeping on the couch. Hazel, Faith, do you two want to stay here tonight?
Well, I don't really have a way to get home. I can call my parents and let them know. And Hazel's just, I think it'd probably be a good idea for me to stay. Yeah. I'll She makes a calculated guess. I think we can share the daybed.
Oh, she is your type. That was just muttered to herself.
I think that might be nice. Can I roll inspect for Chris to take a hard look at Hazel?
I think that would be more read a soul.
Sure, I'll take it.
Unless, what are you looking specifically for?
It's a little bit of just trying to see if there's any recognition there. It's a little bit just trying to see what the vibe is.
Okay, that's definitely read a soul.
So that's fine. That's a flat roll for me. Well, I'm going to use courage here because that's the only roll I'm going to get for the rest of the session, I think. So that's a 4 on the dice, but that brings me to a 6, right?
Which is still a failure.
Shit.
So, not a whole lot of good there.
Well, Chris is not particularly the insightful type.
No.
It's hard to read. Yeah, there's something familiar there. But putting your finger on it is difficult. If there's anything left of that connection, it is torn and ragged, with only fragments remaining. And you're racking your brain for how this connection might exist. It's evading you.
Chris is staring, frankly, just kind of openly at Hazel and actively looks a little lost. A lot of confusion painted on her face.
You good? I mean, obviously not, but
Chris purses her lips a little bit. GM, roll read a soul for me. For Hazel.
9.
Hazel can see tears welling up in Chris's eyes, but they are being very carefully controlled.
Let's get you set up on the daybed. You're going to need that rest. And she slides an arm under your shoulders and lifts you from the chair and helps you move to the room with the daybed in it and starts helping get the bed set up and help you get comfortable. And I think that is a good spot for us to wrap up this session. Thank you all so much for listening, and thank you to my players. And I hope to see you next time. Have a good night. Thank you again for joining us on this adventure. With Conviction is a production of Silver Maiden Games. If you would like to play Conviction, check out the game at silvermaidengames.itch.io. Music for the intro and outro of this podcast is A Soul with Conviction by Doom Vega, who you can find on Bandcamp. Music within the episodes is by Rachel Rose Mitchell, who you can find on Bandcamp and Spotify. All rights to the music are retained by their original artist. Production and editing are done by myself and the With Conviction cast. Thank you all. This would not be what it is without you. You can find this podcast on Spotify and YouTube or silvermaidengames.wordpress.com. You can also find more about the game, podcast, and ways to contact us at silvermaidengames.wordpress.com.